Ministers have been told that people living in homes with unsafe cladding face a form of torture. At question time, Conservative and Labour MPs called on the government to do more to tackle a safety problem that became apparent after the Grenfell Tower fire, in which 72 people died. The Housing Minister was also challenged over reports that building owners who do get help from a special fund will be banned from talking to the media without government approval.
Sleep deprivation is recognised as a form of torture. People living in buildings with unsafe cladding are being tortured physically due to a lack of sleep as they live in fear, financially as they cannot sell their homes and are forced to pay for waking watches, and mentally as they live in limbo. Can I ask my honourable friend when he expects this torture to end?
We all appreciate the terrible challenges and suffering that many people around our country face with this issue. And that's why we want the residents of blocks which are enduring waking watch to get the benefits of our changes as soon as possible. We expect the £30 million fund to be open this month with the aim to start providing funding for the installation of alarms as quickly as possible. We all agree, I think, Mr. Speaker, that the best way of making buildings safe is to speed up remediation, and that is what our policies intend.
Another Conservative was unhappy to read reports the government might offer leaseholders loans to cover work beyond the initial £1.6 billion fund for England.
The government have always been right to say that leaseholders should not bear the costs of a scandal for which they bore no responsibility.
He said that wouldn't be consistent with the government's word.
We've always been clear that it's unacceptable for leaseholders to have to worry about fixing the costs of historic safety defects in their buildings, defects that they did not cause. And I fully understand the anxiety that they must all feel, particularly given the compounding challenges of the pandemic. That's why we are determined to removing the barriers to fixing those historic defects and identifying clear financial solutions to help protect those leaseholders, whilst also, of course, protecting the taxpayer.
Even if a loan scheme were introduced to cover the costs of these defects, even if it was a very low interest scheme, that still would be a capital charge on properties, a capital charge which would be a considerable financial burden to leaseholders. It will put many of them into negative equity, and it would mean their properties were unsaleable. So will he accept that a loan scheme which puts an additional debt on leaseholders is not a fair way out of this problem, and instead he should look to the industry and to government to cover the costs of putting these defects right?
We have put available to those buildings and those owners who are not able to remedy those defects quickly and effectively £1.6 billion in order to achieve those defects.
Add insult to injury, ministers are trying to gag recipients of the Building Safety Fund from speaking to the media. That's just not going to happen. Have ministers learned nothing about transparency from the Grenfell inquiry? And isn't it about time that ministers step in and make sure the developer community shoulder their responsibility for this mess?
We will work at pace to find solutions that resolve the question of building defects such that we do not see leaseholders, hard-pressed leaseholders, enduring difficult, unforeseen and unfair taxes. And if those leaseholders wish to step forward and make comments themselves, who am I to say that they should not? We live in a free country, let them speak.
The Housing Minister, Christopher Pincher, offering leaseholders a chance to have their say, although his department said at the weekend that building owners applying for a share of the fund would need its permission before talking to the media.